Hey guys, Sandra here. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm talking about a book that I cannot stop thinking about since I just finished it this morning. This is going to haunt me for months and months and months, and it's just one of those stories that lingers and it stays with you. And that book is The Poet Empress by Shen Tao. Look at this book cover. It is beautiful. On the front cover, it says, "Love is a weapon." I want to be clear. Whether you are a book girly or a book bro, this is not a romantasy. This is not a romance. I would argue this is not even any kind of a romantic story. It's a love story, but it involves familial love, love of country, love of family and community. But this is not a romantasy. This is one of the darkest stories that I have read. Where I'm at right now, this book, The Poet Empress, is the best book of 2026 so far, in my opinion. I'm trying to think of stories that this is similar in tone to. If you like Prince of Thorns by Mark Lawrence or M.L. Wang's The Sword of Kaigen or Blood over Brighthaven, even Rebecca Kuang's The Poppy War trilogy and Babel, the magic system in this is very nuanced, just like Babel and Blood over Brighthaven is. It's called literomancy in this. Members of the imperial family and anyone of higher station who is literate and goes to school to learn this. It is a form of magic poetry writing. So it's a beautiful story in how that is worked in there. But I want to be clear because I said alchemized and stuff like that. I just want to make it crystal clear that this is not a love story. This is not enemies to lovers. This is not any kind of romantasy. It is a dark adult fantasy. Honestly, this book made the ending of Alchemized to me feel like a happily ever rom-com kind of story. And I love Alchemized by SenLinYu. I still love Alchemized, and I still think Alchemized is a fantastic book that dives really deep into trauma and war stories and what happens to love in that kind of scenario. This is an incredible book. For fans of A Song of Ice and Fire or The House of the Dragon or Game of Thrones adaptation, this book centers on the imperial family of the Azalea dynasty. And in current day, that consists of an emperor who is dying and his five sons, the eldest being Maro, the second eldest being Taryn, Isan, Kieran, and then the youngest is like a baby. This is a story about inherited trauma and what it takes to overcome that when power is at the center of it and greed. And it is about love or lack thereof and just what that causes in a family. And so I bring up House of the Dragon because, especially if you've watched that in season one, just the family dynamics between the Hightowers and the Targaryens, the constant infighting, and the parents pitting child against child. Whenever these children, these cousins, siblings, whatever, were getting along just fine as children and actually liked each other. But through exploitation and expectation and obligation and just continuing specific lineages, how that can break down the relationships within family. And this is such a powerful story. The main character is a 16-year-old girl named Wei. She comes from a very poor farming family in her village. The thing about the Azalea dynasty is there has been a famine that has been starving all of the people, especially those outside of the capital city and those of wealthier means. It has been starving the common people. This book doesn't shy away from that kind of impact that that has had. And so when we meet Wei, the story is she has an opportunity to try and be selected as an imperial concubine to the second son who was recently named heir to this Azalea dynasty, Taryn. The kicker is Taryn is an evil son of a. He is cruel, he is brutal and violent, but I'll say that there's a lot of nuanced depth around that. He's not simply just some Joffrey from Game of Thrones who is like a psycho. The way that Shen Tao developed each of her characters and the way that chapter to chapter she gives us these flashbacks of things that happened generations past and relationships that happened between people and things like that, and how that just keeps getting inherited down the line and how it breaks people apart. I cried so many times reading this book. I must have cried like 5 times. I cried finishing the book. I was bawling my eyes out. It was hard to put this book down. The writing is gorgeous. When you have a magic system that's based on poetry writing, not just the words and the structure of it being good, quote unquote, but the intent and the heart behind the words being written. It's such an interesting book, and that makes a great backdrop for having something that, even though the story can be super ugly and hard to read at times, that lends it this beauty as well. Reading this book is so interesting because you almost read it in a cinematic way, or at least in my brain. And it reminds me of those early 2000s Asian cinema kind of films like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, House of the Flying Daggers, Memoirs of a Geisha, even though it's like a Japanese story. It's so pretty. I was shocked that this was a debut, and I wouldn't be surprised if this one day got an adaptation. It is worthy of at least a really well done movie or at least a mini series on Apple TV Plus or something like that. It'd have to be HBO or Apple TV Plus, but I wouldn't be shocked. But what I am shocked about is that this has not hit the New York Times bestselling list yet. It is a USA Today bestseller, but this being a debut and this just coming out this past January, so not even 2 months ago now. This is such a fantastic novel, and I am begging everyone to go buy a copy of this book and read it. It is so good. I checked online today just to see where it's at in reviews and ratings. There's almost 8,000 ratings so far on Goodreads, and it's sitting at like a 4.48 rating, which is high, especially for an otherwise unknown author and a debut at that. But it's so good. Like, I don't even know what else to say because I just need people to talk to me about this book. So I need you to go read this book. I'm begging my husband to go read this book. I think when he finishes what he's on right now, he's going to pick this book up. It is on Kindle Unlimited, so I have to plug that. I don't know how I feel about Amazon, but you can pick it up on Kindle Unlimited right now. I enjoyed the experience of this book so much that after it, I went through and I bought the audiobook for it on Libro FM. I've just been working around the house and popping in the audiobook. There's a man and a woman narrating it, and it's really well done. Like, they act with emotion in their voices, and it just completely sucks you in. And, it's interesting because in a lot of books that have constant flashbacks in the story, I tend to get annoyed with that structure a lot. And because it feels like it is so fracturing of my experience reading the story. I don't know how she accomplished this in this book, but it never felt forced. It never felt like I was flailing around trying to figure out where I was. Everything enhanced the story so well. I was flipping through every page because I had to know what certain motivations and reasons behind things were. This wasn't a straightforward story at all. I found myself not really being able to anticipate what was going to happen. A couple things, yes, but for the most part, I was just flipping through the pages, not having any idea where this story could possibly go. I went in blind. I think the synopsis does a pretty good job of not spoiling major plot points. I always just recommend going in blind because it's just such a better experience that way. But this book, though, this is one of those reads that has me sitting here pondering if I should recalibrate my rating system because this was a 5-star read. And I'm one of those readers, I can like a lot of things, but when you read this book, I'm just like, wow, I just read such and such book and gave that 5 stars. And it just makes me want to go back and knock everything down a star or two. That's how good it is. And it's definitely not going to be fair to pick up any book after this, or at least a month or two after finishing this book, just because my mind is stuck on these characters. It physically and emotionally hurt me. I mentioned that the book was kind of this dark fantasy, and I cannot emphasize that enough. If you are sensitive to things like child sexual assault, you have to remember there's 16-year-old, 15-year-old concubines, younger, in this book. It's that kind of story. So, child sexual assault, there's torture and killing, there's just all kinds of violence. The common people in this story are literally starving to death. So, just be aware that it has heavy, heavy material in it. I really just want to go back and read it again. It's just like, what do I do now? I can't function. My husband was basically laughing at me because this morning when I finished, I just marched upstairs still, in my pajamas with my teeth not even brushed yet. My hair was like a rat's nest, and I just immediately started just spewing everything about this book when he was in the middle of something. And I got shut down kind of quickly. But so I need somebody to read this book. Please, someone read this book and talk to me about it. This book deserves all the stars. It deserves all the buzz and publicity. This was such a feat. I am so interested to see what else Shen Tao writes in the future. And yeah, on the subject of writing and poetry, that's something that I'm really passionate about too. I write poetry. I'm a writer. I'm working on my own books. This is one of those special stories that I read it and then I'm like, well, how could I ever write anything this good? Why even try? But it's that good, and, I appreciate really good art, and this book, it has something to say, and it says it all succinctly and beautifully within one volume, this standalone book, masterpiece. I can't ask for anything more than that. The Poet Empress by Shen Tao. Go get a copy. This is the aardvark edition, so it doesn't have the beautiful, like, bronzy, kinda coppery gilded edges, but that edition is beautiful. Go pick it up or go get it off of Kindle Unlimited and then come back here and talk to me about this book because I'm going to listen to it again and I want to stay here. I want to stay in this world and I want to stay thinking about these characters and how I still hurt. Maybe I'm a masochist. Oh well. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this review. I don't think I gave away any spoilers. Go in blind and just know that it is a dark, dark ride. It's not particularly happy, but there is this modicum, this tiniest little hint of hope there. So, all right. Until next time, I will see you soon.